Why does Mercedes-Benz have a three-pointed star? Have you ever looked at the Mercedes-Benz logo and wondered why it is a three-pointed star? It is one of the most recognizable symbols in the world. You can see it on luxury sedans, powerful sports cars, elegant SUVs, and some of the most expensive vehicles ever produced. But the Mercedes-Benz star is not simply a symbol of luxury. Its story goes back more than a century, to a time when automobiles were still a new and exciting technology, and when the company behind the Mercedes brand was thinking far beyond the roads. The three-pointed star became a symbol connected with land, sea, and air. And the story behind it is much more interesting than you might expect. So how did Mercedes-Benz get its famous three-pointed star? To understand the answer, we have to go back to the early days of the automobile. In the late 19th century, the automobile industry was still in its infancy. There were no modern highways, no electric cars, no autonomous driving systems, and no massive global car companies competing around the world. Instead, inventors were experimenting with engines and trying to answer one important question. Could a machine powered by an engine completely change the way humans traveled? One of the most important people in this story was Gottlieb Daimler. Daimler was a German engineer and inventor who became one of the pioneers of the automobile industry. He believed that the internal combustion engine could be used for much more than just automobiles. His company developed engines for vehicles on land, but the technology also had applications on water and in the air. This is where the idea behind the three-pointed star becomes especially fascinating. The 3 points of the star eventually became associated with Daimler's ambition to develop engines for land, sea, and air. In other words, the symbol represented a much bigger vision than simply building cars. It represented mobility in 3 different environments: land, water, and the sky. The story of the Mercedes-Benz star also involves Daimler's sons, Paul and Adolf Daimler. After Gottlieb Daimler's death, his sons remembered a symbol their father had used in connection with the family. A star had a personal meaning in the Daimler family and later became the inspiration for the famous company trademark. In 1909, Daimler registered a 3-pointed star as a trademark. A 4-pointed star was also registered around the same period. But it was the 3-pointed version that ultimately became the iconic symbol we recognize today. The timing was important. At the beginning of the 20th century, automobiles were becoming increasingly popular, and manufacturers were beginning to understand something that modern businesses consider essential. A powerful brand needs a recognizable symbol. Today, you can see a logo for only a fraction of a second and immediately recognize the company behind it. But more than 100 years ago, automotive branding was still developing. Mercedes was already becoming associated with engineering, performance, prestige, and innovation. The 3-pointed star gave the brand a distinctive identity. But there is another important part of the story. The Mercedes name itself has an unusual history. The name Mercedes came from Mercedes Jelinek, the daughter of Emil Jelinek. Emil Jelinek was an influential businessman and automobile enthusiast who became closely connected with Daimler vehicles. He promoted cars built by Daimler and entered them in races under the name Mercedes, using his daughter's first name. The name became increasingly successful, and in 1902, Mercedes was officially registered as a brand name. So by the early 20th century, the company had 2 powerful ingredients: a famous name and a distinctive star. But the history did not stop there. In 1926, Daimler Motor and Gesellschaft merged with Benz and C. This created Daimler-Benz. The merger brought together 2 of the most important names in the early history of the automobile. Daimler had been associated with the Mercedes brand. Benz was connected to Carl Benz, another legendary pioneer of automotive engineering. Carl Benz is widely recognized for developing the Benz patent motorwagen, one of the earliest practical automobiles powered by an internal combustion engine. The merger created a new company and eventually produced the Mercedes-Benz brand that became famous around the world. The logo evolved as well. The three-pointed star was eventually placed inside a circle, creating the familiar Mercedes-Benz emblem. That design became one of the most recognizable automotive logos on Earth. But why does the star have 3 points? The most commonly told explanation is land, sea, and air. The 3 points represent Daimler's ambition to build engines that could power transportation in all 3 environments. The first point represents land. This is the most obvious connection today. Mercedes-Benz became famous for automobiles, from luxury sedans to high-performance sports cars and powerful SUVs. The second point represents water. Daimler's engine technology was also developed for marine applications. At a time when reliable engines were transforming transportation, the possibility of powering boats with internal combustion engines was extremely important. And the third point represents the air. Daimler engines were also connected to early aviation and airship development. This was an era when humans were only beginning to conquer the sky. Aircraft technology was developing rapidly, and engineers were searching for engines that were powerful enough, reliable enough, and light enough for flight. So the three-pointed star captured a bold technological vision. Land, sea, air. One symbol. 3 directions. One enormous ambition. But there is an interesting detail that many people miss. The logo was not originally created as a simple advertising trick. It was connected to the history and engineering ambitions of Daimler. That makes the symbol much more meaningful. When you look at the Mercedes-Benz star today, you might immediately think about luxury. You might think about expensive cars, leather interiors, powerful engines, elegant design, or high performance. But the original story is really about engineering ambition. It is about a company that did not want to think about transportation in only one dimension. The world was changing rapidly. Cars were transforming land transportation. Ships were becoming more advanced. And aviation was opening an entirely new frontier. Engine technology was at the center of all of these changes. That is why the three-pointed star became such a powerful symbol. It represented the idea that one technology could help move humanity across different environments. And there is another reason the Mercedes-Benz logo has remained so successful. It is incredibly simple. There are no complicated letters. There is no long name. There is no detailed illustration. Just a clean geometric star inside a circle. That simplicity makes it easy to recognize from a distance. Put it on the front of a car, and people know what they are looking at. Put it on a building, a racing car, an advertisement, or a piece of merchandise, and the same symbol immediately communicates the identity of the brand. This is one of the secrets of powerful logos. The best logos do not need to explain themselves. They become familiar through repetition. And the Mercedes-Benz star has had more than a century to become familiar. But there is an even deeper lesson behind the logo. A successful symbol can preserve the history of a company even when most people do not know the story behind it. Millions of people recognize the Mercedes-Benz star. But only a small percentage know why it has 3 points. That is what makes the symbol so fascinating. Every time someone sees that star, they are looking at a piece of automotive history. They are looking at a symbol that emerged during the early development of the modern transportation industry. They are looking at an idea that connected automobiles with a much broader technological revolution. And they are looking at a logo that survived generations of design changes, technological breakthroughs, wars, economic crises, and enormous changes in the automobile industry. Think about how much transportation has changed since 1909. Cars have gone from relatively simple mechanical machines to sophisticated computers on wheels. Modern vehicles can use cameras, radar, sensors, navigation systems, advanced driver assistance technology, and electric powertrains. But the Mercedes-Benz star remains instantly recognizable. That is an incredible example of how powerful a visual identity can become. The star has also become associated with another important idea. Prestige. For decades, Mercedes-Benz vehicles have been marketed as premium automobiles. The three-pointed star became more than a company trademark. It became a cultural symbol of status, engineering, and luxury. But its original meaning reminds us that the company was built around engineering first. Before the star became a symbol of luxury, it was connected to a vision of technological progress. A vision that transportation could extend beyond the road. And perhaps that is the most interesting part of the entire story. The next time you see a Mercedes-Benz on the street, look at the emblem on the front. You may see a luxury car. You may see an expensive vehicle. You may see German engineering. But now you can also see something else. 3 points. 3 environments. Land. Sea. Air. The Mercedes-Benz three-pointed star is not just a beautiful logo. It is a reminder of an era when engineers were imagining what the future of transportation could look like. More than a century later, that simple symbol is still telling the same story. A story about ambition. A story about engineering. And a story about moving humanity forward. So the next time you see that famous Mercedes-Benz star, remember that there is more behind it than luxury and status. There is history. There is technology. And there is a vision that began more than 100 years ago. If you enjoy discovering the hidden stories behind everyday objects, famous brands, inventions, and symbols, make sure to follow why. Because sometimes the most ordinary things around us have the most extraordinary stories behind them.